NFL Talk with Elite Wages.
Yo. What's happening, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of NFL Talk with Elite Wages. We're now into NFL Week 15. Obviously, there was no episode on Wednesday this week for the recap of NFL Week 14 or Thursday Night Football. I didn't play anything in Thursday Night Football. Good job, really, because that game was absolutely dreadful. No touchdowns, full of field goals and punts, and what a boring Thursday Night Football game. So glad I missed out on that one. But the reason I didn't have an episode on Wednesday was it was my wife's birthday, so we had a few days away. Allowed me to have a few days away from sort of gambling as well. So rest and reset, as they say. So back strong in NFL Week 15. So we've got a bit of a lengthy episode this time, going all in on some teams, a few player props, and NFL fantasy football is back as well. But in terms of last week's results, we had an absolutely terrible time. 2-6 for minus 5.95. We've been hot for 7 weeks straight, and it was always coming. We were always going to be due a little bit of regression. Didn't expect it to be quite that bad, but last week it was kind of cake from the beginning. It was a bit chalked from day one. So this week we're looking to get back in the win column. Still up on the season, but yeah, back into NFL Week 15 this week. No Thursday Night Football, like I said, so we're going to get straight into my first play, and I'm actually going to go and start off the week with a few controversial bet selections, which they may raise a few eyebrows this week. The first one is going to be in the Cowboys and Panthers game. In my opinion, this game is a little bit crazy. The line for this is not where it should be, in my opinion. There's no doubt that the Cowboys haven't played well this year, and in fact they're holding a worse record than they would have hoped for this year. But they technically do still have a very slim shot at the playoffs. The Cowboys defense has been poor all year round. They sit second from bottom, averaging 28.8 points per game, which is only 0.4 points above the Panthers, who are they're dead last in points allowed to opponents per game on average. The Dallas offense was supposed to be high impact, explosive offense led by Dak, CD, Rico Dowdle as well. Zeke Elliott was meant to feature. But this year the run game has been minimal. The pass game has been mediocre at best. They averaged just 20 points per game on the year, and they actually have been playing better in recent weeks. In the last 3 games, they've won 2, managed to keep within 1 score of the Bengals in their loss in, I think it was last week or week before. But the run game, that has actually picked up as well. So they average 123 yards in the last 3 games, which is a huge improvement on the 91 yards per game on average on the season. As well as that, they've actually been scoring points too. So they've scored 34, 27 and 20, which is 27 on average in those most recent 3 games. To put into context how strange this line is this week, the Panthers have a 3-10 record, with their 3 wins being against the Raiders, which was an overtime win, against the Giants as well, and a 1-point win against the Saints. And obviously the Giants being ranked as the worst team in the NFL, the Raiders only slightly higher than them, ranking the 6th worst. The Panthers haven't been favourites in the last 33 games. It's obvious the Panthers have been playing fairly well recently. They've been able to hang around with some big teams, obviously the Chiefs, and they came close to winning in that game as well. In their last 6, they've actually scraped out 2 wins. They lost by 3 against the Chiefs, a 3-point overtime loss against the Bucs, and they lost by 8 against the Eagles as well. But it still seems quite strange why the Panthers have been favoured in this game. Their offense and defense have both struggled for the majority of the season. A team that ranks 5th worst on offense, averaging 17 points per game, and a defense that ranks dead last, allowing 29 points per game, shouldn't be favoured in any game, in my opinion. It doesn't matter if they have shown signs of life in recent weeks, or it just doesn't matter if they're up against a team who hasn't lived up to their expectations. This is an ideal spot for the Cowboys to bounce back and start stringing some wins together as the season comes to a close. Only 4 games left in the season. The Cowboys do realistically have a shot at the playoffs and have a shot at being a plus 500 record team. And obviously that's going to start with a win this week against the Panthers. So I'm actually going to go 1 unit on the Cowboys money line at odds of 2.3, so it's a plus money play in that one. I'm going to stick in this game. As I mentioned, the Cowboys' run game has improved recently, averaging 123 yards, which is 30 yards more than their season average. They now face a team who ranks dead last against the run. The Panthers average 170 yards allowed on the ground and even 203 in their most recent 3 games. So it's clear the Cowboys have tried to emphasise improving the run recently. Their most 3 recent games, Dowdle has rushed for 19, 22 and 18 times, which is a huge difference. He's actually only had more than 12 carries just once in the 9 games prior. So in those 4 games where he's had 12 or more carries, he ran for over 85 in all 4, including 3 straight games. So the new game script of trying to get the run game going and obviously then facing the worst run D in the league, it clearly benefits Dowdle. So I expect him to keep up this solid performance, and I expect him to keep up this trajectory of carries and yardage. So I'm going to go with another unit on Rico Dowdle over 84.5 rushing yards at odds of 1.9. So moving on to the next game, which is my next controversial bet selection, and it's going to be in the game between the Browns and the Chiefs. So I sound like a Chiefs hater or like a jealous fan, but that's legitimately not the case. So for years the Chiefs have been really good. They've played some really good football. They've had some top players. They've been led by MVP Mahomes. They've been super fun to watch, and they've been really exciting to watch. But this season that has definitely not been the case. They've been super fluky. They've won from fumbles. They've won from blocked field goals, a lot of missed penalties, things like that. And I keep mentioning the same fact every week, but they aren't helping themselves in this category. So of their 12 wins, 10 have been kept within 1 score. They've played some pretty mediocre teams too. So they've played the Chargers twice, the Raiders twice, the Broncos, Falcons, that's just a few. In 5 straight weeks, they've allowed opponents to cover a +4 spread, and in fact, their winning margin this season is just 5.4. They've not been able to put up a lot of points to blow out teams, and although the stats look a little bit different, they've also not done a good enough job to stop teams from scoring. I know the Browns haven't been, the best team in the world this year. They haven't even been a good team this year, but Watson, he was meant to elevate them higher than the previous years. But the truth is they've actually played a lot better with less pressure and led by James Winston. At least he's given the Browns double the wins that Watson did. There honestly isn't much positive to say about the Browns. Their defense hasn't been good. They are in the bottom 10 for points per game allowed, averaging 25, and they are in the bottom 10 for total yardage allowed with 313 on average. Offense is a similar story. They're 4th from bottom in points per game on average, which is 17.8. Coincidentally averaging 313 yards on offense as well, total yards. So offense and defense, both 313 yards, which again is also bottom 10. But we all know Winston, he can sling it. He has had the Browns, he currently has the Browns with the 3rd most passing yards in the league in the last 3 weeks. One area the Chiefs have struggled with this season is on pass defense. They actually sit in 20th, allowing 221 passing yards per game, and Winston has cleared that in 4 of his 6 starts this year, averaging 315, so he's well over that on average this year so far. There's been a huge potential for upsets to lower lesser teams against the Chiefs this year, and I think there's a huge potential for an upset in this game as well. The Chiefs don't blow out teams, and if the Browns can limit the Chiefs with their defense, which we all know can be great, Myles Garrett, Denzel Ward, players like that, they can all need to step up. They can be a really, really good defense like they have been in the past few years. So if they can limit the Chiefs, and if they can get Winston to limit those interceptions as well, and keep slinging the ball to his receivers, the Browns could have a good chance in this game. So I'm going to go with a 1 unit on the Browns plus 4.5. That's odds of 1.87. And I'm going to stick again in this one again. So we've got another back-to-back play. So as I mentioned, Winston has been the life of the Browns offense. In his 6 starts, he's thrown the ball a total of 259 times, and that's 43 times on average per game. And he's actually had 40 or more pass attempts in 5 out of 6 games this year in his 6 starts. So 5 out of 6, he's had 40 or more. I don't expect this to change this week. Although I believe the Browns, they can keep it close with the Chiefs, I still think there's going to be certain instances during the game where they are going to be down and they are going to have to throw the ball. So I think the majority of this game will enable Winston to be able to unload his arm. I'm going to take a half a unit bet on this one. I'm going to go a little less risk. So we're going to go half a unit for Winston over 39.5 passing attempts. And that's going to be odds of 3.2, which is plus 220. So we've got another plus money play as well. So it's 4 plays down. 2 teams, 2 player props, and we're going to go with another team in this one. It's going to be the Bengals and the Titans game. So I think I'm done with controversial bets for the week. So back to a familiar bet and an even more familiar team for me, which is the Cincinnati Bengals. They face the Titans this week, and prior to the season, I had 2 outlooks on both of these 2 teams, and they've both actually gone the complete opposite direction to what I expected. So the Titans were a team I believed who had flown under the radar with their off-season acquisitions. Their defense has had some really solid names, and their offense isn't really bad on paper either, but they haven't translated that onto the field this year. The Titans have been poor. They've won just 3 of their 13 games, and only one of those was a convincing win. The defense has been even worse. They averaged the 6th most points per game to opponents, which is 26.3 on average. And despite a solid defensive performance last week against the Jaguars, they actually only allowed 10 points. They have allowed teams to score on demand, allowing 20 or more in 10 of their 13 games this year. Something small to add as well is the Jaguars' offense isn't anywhere near as good as the Bengals. The Bengals, they have it all to do this year in their season. To try and keep their season alive, they've got it absolutely all to do. So they find themselves in a really tricky situation. They're sitting at 5-8, but they do have a winnable schedule to end the season. So in their last 4 games, they have very 4 winnable games. The Bengals have had one of the most explosive offenses in the league this year, sitting 6th points per game on average with 27.5. Over the last 5 weeks, they've managed to score over their average number in all 5. They've scored 28 or more in all 5 games. They have been heating up a lot recently, but results haven't followed as their defense hasn't really helped. This is probably another reason why Joe Burrow has had to carry this team. It's probably another reason why the Bengals have had to score points. Something they've done fairly easily recently. Jamar Chase, he's been key for Joe Burrow, a key receiver, and that's been noticeable too. Receiving double-digit targets in 5 of his last 6 games, and honestly, he's got a real shot at getting the Triple Crown this year. I think he's about 7 receptions off. I expect the Bengals to dominate this game. Scoring points is something they've become accustomed to, something they do on a regular basis, so I don't see that being a problem. I managed to get this line at a really nice number, which is under the key number of 27. So remember I said they're averaging 27.5 on the season. They've scored 28 or more in 5 straight. I actually got this at 25.5, so we've got a nice number there. So we're going to go 1 unit Bengals, team total over 25.5, odds of 1.87.
Fantasy football.
Yeah, you know the drill. We're back on fantasy football this week. I think we took 2 weeks off fantasy football. I actually did win in both of those 2 weeks, but it was very, very sweaty. So I couldn't see sort of a clear-cut line to follow in the past couple of weeks. But we're back at it again this week. So I'll run it through again. To those of you who don't know, if you're new or you've missed the past couple of weeks, I have partnered with a fantasy football app called Fantasy Game Day app, and that is available to all UK users, and it is basically like all your other DFS fantasy football apps and sites, but this one is the top in the UK. Remember that. So this is number 1 in the UK for fantasy football. So in terms of the partnership, if you use my code, which is ELITE, which is ELITE, you get a free entry after your first paid entry if you use my code. And basically the point of the app is you're the manager, the GM, the head coach, whatever you want to call it, of your own team. You get to pick a quarterback, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends. You get a flex position, and you get a captain spot. Now the idea of the captain spot is that person will give you double points. So whoever you put in that one, you need to make sure that's your go-to guy this week, who's going to score you a ton of points and then some when you double it. So normally the format I go through is I'll suggest a captain pick, which have been fairly solid all year. They've been getting over 40 points, I think, in 8 of 10 weeks this season. And then I'll also go through a value pick, which is a slightly lower priced player for you to be able to save up all those coins and money to get the all important expensive players in that lineup as well. So we're actually going to do a different format this week, and it's only going to be for this week. I'm not going to suggest a captain spot, and I'm not going to go for a value pick either, and that's just mainly due to the fact that it could be a pretty obvious pick. A lot of people are going to be picking these two players for their captains this week, and they'd probably be Jamar Chase or Derrick Henry, but I would probably go with Derrick Henry given his matchup this week against the Giants. So that's a little bit of a hint of who I've gone for my captain spot this week, but there's no edge to that because a lot of people are going to be playing those two players. So I am going to suggest two other players, and one of them is a player that I've already mentioned, and that's going to be Rico Dowdle. So he's going to be my running back from the Cowboys, and he's going to cost $5,200. And I'm going to start off with him, mainly for the reasons I mentioned in the bet I have on him, which I shared earlier. Dowdle is a good matchup this week against a weak run D, and the Cowboys have been better recently as well. He's cleared 85 rushing yards in all games. He's had 12 or more carries, so I expect that to happen again this week. I think the Cowboys have sort of found this rhythm. They've won 2 of the last 3 games as well, where he's had 12 or more carries, so I think they might lean on him a little bit again this week. A touchdown for Rico could be in play as well this week, as the Panthers allow, I think it's 1.5 on average rushing touchdowns on average per game. So he's on course for a touchdown and a high yardage game. He's actually been used in the passing game a little bit as well, so we could see a few extra yards and a few extra receptions in that area too. So yeah, Rico Dowdle, running back, Cowboys, 5,200. And the next player I'm going to go with as well is in another game I've mentioned, which is the Browns and Chiefs game. And obviously there's no value selection, so I normally go with a tight end for that. But I'm going to go with a tight end this week. It's the Browns tight end, David Njoku. He's going to cost $4,800. As I mentioned before, I'm quite high on Winston this week. Even against a team like the Chiefs, I was actually really considering taking Winston for my quarterback 1 in DFS this week, but decided against it. I decided to go with David Njoku. He's been a really solid receiving option for James Winston for some time, but he's really helped him in recent weeks with back-to-back double-digit targets. He had 17 and 14. He managed to get 9 and 7 receptions, and he had 42 and 52 yards with 3 touchdowns combined in those 2 games. He had 2 and 1 in one game in the other game. So he's been back at his best in the past couple of weeks. I think he's going to be needed this week if James Winston's going to want to try and push the Browns to win this game. Njoku is averaging 43 yards per game, so a nice matchup for the Browns, and David Njoku with the Chiefs allowing the most receiving yards to the tight end position. They average 78 allowed to that position, so that's almost double his average. A little add to that as well, the Chiefs have allowed 9 tight ends to receive 40 or more yards this season, including 52 last week to Smith and 140 to Brock Bowers a week before that. So we're going to go with David Njoku, Browns tight end, 4,800 coins. Okay, fantasy football done. Back into the plays. The play I'm picking now, it is going to be in the Buccaneers and the Chargers game. So I have been quite high on the Bucs this year. And this game we have a real contrast in 2 teams who are really good at different things. So the Bucs, they've been really good and a really good, consistently high scoring team, and the Chargers have been a really good defensive team, both of which are ranked in the top 5 of both categories. One thing has to give in this game, and the question is going to be, will the Chargers be able to keep the Bucs quiet, or will the Bucs be able to continue to score on demand on this Chargers team? I'd love to say the Bucs will continue. They've been a really good team to watch this year. They sit in 5th for points per game on average, averaging 27. They've scored 20 or more in all but 2 games this year, but they haven't yet faced a defense quite like this Chargers team. Although they have played 4 top 10 defenses so far, they've scored a total of 84 points in those 4 games as well. But the Chargers this year, they've they've been known to lock teams up, and the offense has actually done a really good job and been overlooked due to this as well. People are focusing on their defense too much, and their offense has been fairly solid. Their offense has actually scored some solid points. In 7 of their 8 wins and 8 games in total, they've scored 20 or more. They are even averaging 21 points per game, which isn't too shabby. Justin Herbert, he's also had a quietly solid year. He's actually rated as the top quarterback by PFF since week 6. Adding to that, they should get Lad McConkey back this week from injury as well. Their defense is doing a solid job keeping teams quiet. They allow a league low 15 points per game, and they haven't played many high-powered offenses so far this year, but they did struggle to keep them quiet. Aside from the Bengals, Ravens and the Steelers, they've managed to contain everyone else, and they have conceded 20 or more in only 3 of 13 games. They managed to keep 10 teams under 20 points. The Bucs defense ranks 31st in pass defense, and Justin Herbert is ranked as a top quarterback this season. Add to that again, Winfield Jr. suffered a knee injury, which will keep him out for this game, and that makes the Bucs' poor secondary even weaker again. So I expect Herbert to take full advantage. The Chargers have a real genuine chance of extending their record to 11-5, starting with a win this week, and in this game is going to be key. So we're going to go 1 unit, Chargers -3 at odds of 1.95. Next game is going to be in the Steelers and the Eagles game. So I'm back on another Steelers game. I think this is the 8th time this season I've backed something in the Steelers game. This one is I'm going to keep it as short as possible. Basically, I think it's a fairly straightforward bet. I see this as a similar situation to the Chargers and the Bucs game. One team has been really good offensively, and the other team has been really good defensively. In reality, both teams are really good defensively. They both rank in the top 5, but it hasn't translated into low-scoring games, especially at a low line like 42 points. So 5 of the last 7 games for the Eagles have gone over this mark, and 4 of the last 6 Steelers contests have gone over as well. Both Philly and Pittsburgh are allowing 18 points per game this season. The Steelers' points per game average increasing to 25 in the last 3. Since Russell Wilson took over as quarterback 1, the Steelers they've gone over 42 points in their games in 6 of the last 7, and that obviously helps a lot by the Steelers that they've averaged 28 points per game in his starts. So they've contributed well to the 42 points in the last 7 games. Obviously, that's mainly due to the offense of the Eagles. I'm sorry, I've skipped a bit there. Similar story for the Eagles. 5 of the last 7 have gone over 42, which is again mainly due to the offense of the Eagles, as they have averaged 33 points in those 7 games. The Eagles have allowed teams to score a decent amount in their most recent games as well, allowing 16, 19, 20 and 18 in the last 4. So asking for both teams to score 20 in this game, that's not out of reach. This game could be a potential shootout, especially with the anger from AJ Brown. It could be a game where he gets a ton of targets and he'll want to get a few of those into the end zone to prove a point. Russell Wilson has been balling in recent weeks as well. So I expect this game to be an all-offensive game instead of a defensive game. So we're going to go with the Steelers and Eagles over 42 at odds of 1.9.
Sunday Night Football.
Yes, we're back on Sunday Night Football. This one is going to be a sick game. This one is my game of the week for obvious reasons. So my Green Bay Packers will travel to Seattle to face the Seahawks. The Seahawks, they have obviously found some great form, winning 4 straight. They're quietly having a solid year as well within a division that's wide open between all 4 teams. Obviously, the Rams just beat the San Francisco 49ers, which obviously knocks the 49ers a little bit lower, a little bit more out of reach, which gives the Seahawks more to play for now. They can extend their lead at the top. But since their bye week, the Seahawks defense has kept teams quiet, allowing over 20 points just once in those 4 games, averaging 15.5, which is a huge improvement on their season's average of 21 points per game. Offensively, and more in particular, the Seahawks passing game was at one point one of the best, but has slightly dipped as the season's gone on. Not too much, but it's not as potent as it was. The Seahawks average 23 points per game, which ranks them at 14, and their pass game is still ranked as the third best, averaging 243, but Geno has only gone over this number twice in his last 7 games. The Packers are also having a very underrated season. They're sitting at 9-4 with 3 of their losses against potential playoff teams. Obviously, they lost twice against Detroit. They lost against Minnesota as well, and the Philadelphia Eagles in Week 1 as well. So 4 potential playoff teams. Coming off a loss against the Lions, the Packers will be motivated to get back on track and make their playoff push as the season draws to an end. Offensively, the Packers have been very good. They've scored 30 plus in 3 straight, and they've scored 23 or more in 10 of 13 games this year. The Packers' season points per game average is 26.7, which is 7th best, and they've actually eclipsed this number in 8 games in total. Defensively, they've also been very, very sound. They rank higher than the Seattle Seahawks in literally every category all over the field on offense and defense, except for the passing game, which is very, very close. But defensively sitting 9th for least points per game on average with 21, and also sitting inside the top 10 in run defense too. The Packers have only allowed their points per game average allowed in just 6 games this season. This game and the line doesn't quite add up. Although the Seahawks are on a nice run of 4 games, those wins haven't been impressive. They've overcome the 49ers in the 4th quarter, which was impressive. They should have lost against the Jets, but Jets made Jets mistakes. And they were gifted 14 points from 2 easy turnovers by the Cardinals in their game last week as well. So the Packers have only lost 2 games in the last 9. Both of those were against the Lions, so fairly understandable. You can sort of pass those off. They've had to really, really work for their wins. They've beat some tough defenses and tough offensive as well. Last week, the Packers put up a solid fight against the Lions in a game where they could have won. They went toe-to-toe with, obviously both very, very good in the run game. They went toe-to-toe with one of the best, and they actually won that battle on the ground as well. I believe the momentum is on the Packers side this week, and I believe, the Packers have 9 wins with an average win of 13 points. The Packers have covered a -3 spread in 7 of 9 games. 7 of 9 wins even, where the Seahawks haven't covered a +3 spread in any of their losses this year. As of right now, the Packers hold the number 6 seed, and every win is crucial down the stretch. They will want to sort of solidify their playoff spot. Starts with a win this week. 1 unit, Green Bay Packers -3 at odds of 2.00, which is +100. So we've got another plus play. And again, we're going to stick into this one. We're going to piggyback off of this play with another solid look, in my opinion. So the Packers run game, it's been very strong this year, one of the best, led by Josh Jacobs. The Packers sit in 5th for most rushing yards per game, averaging 144. Jacobs himself is 4th from all running backs in the NFL with 1,053 rushing yards in total. That's an average of 81 yards per contest. The Packers are obviously very committed to their ground game. They're 3rd in rush play percentage with 50.83%, and they're one of the most effective units in the NFL. The Packers average a 7th best 4.8 yards per carry. The line for Josh Jacobs' rushing yards has been set at 73.5, and that's probably due to the fact he's not actually hit this line in the last 2 weeks straight. But I'll take a discounted line. He's surpassed that number. He's surpassed 74 in 5 straight weeks prior to the most recent win. And prior to the most 2 recent weeks, and the Seahawks run defense has been average at best. They allow 122 yards per game on average, a bottom 10 4.7 yards per carry as well. Jacobs scored 8 touchdowns in the last 4 weeks, which shows how reliant the Packers are on Jacobs this year. So I expect Jacobs to feast. I expect him to get a lot of carries. I expect him to get a lot of yardage, and I expect him to help the Packers get the win this week. So we're going to go another unit. So we've got 1 unit, Josh Jacobs over 73.5 rushing yards in total at odds of 1.9. So that's the end of my card this week. So we've got 9 plays. How many? We've got 1, 2, 3 plus money plays as well, which this week as well. So we're on course for a good week. So I'll just run down the plays again. So we got, remember, these are all 1 unit unless I state otherwise. Cowboys money line at odds of 2.3. Dowdle over 84.5 rushing yards at odds of 1.9. The Browns plus 4.5 at odds of 1.87. You've got half a unit on Winston over 39.5 passing attempts at odds of 3.20. Bengals team total over 25.5 at odds of 1.87. Chargers minus 3 at odds of 1.9. Steelers and Eagles over 42 at odds of 1.9. Packers minus 3 at plus money, so that's 2.0 plus 100. And Josh Jacobs over 73.5 rushing yards at odds of 1.9. So yeah, that takes me to the end of this episode. Appreciate everyone for listening this long, listening all the way. It would mean a great deal to me if everyone could go to the link in the bio, click on it, go to all my socials, give me a like, a follow. I will follow back. A like, a follow, subscribe. It's all free, and that basically allows me to get a little bit further in this area. And the reason I would like to get a bit further, reach more viewers and more listeners, is so I can help them win more money as well. So we had a bad week last week, but we're up quite significantly on the season. Let me just check the record. So on the season to date, so 14 weeks, my record is 66, 51 and 3 for plus 7.29 units. We were up to 19 units in the 7 week straight wins. So, we're looking for a bounce back week this week, and I actually believe we can have a really, really solid week this week. So, the drill. Tap into all my socials so you don't miss an episode, a breakdown or a play. Follow, like, subscribe, and share. It's all free. Click the link in the bio. Appreciate everyone for coming out, and I'll be back next week for a recap. We do have a nice little announcement as well. We're gonna be joined with one of my favourite cappers on Twitter, and one of my boys, daily college football, college basketball. He is the college football GOAT. He's the only person I'll trust, no matter what, with my money in college football. And we're going to be joined by him next week. He's got his own little segment next week for college football playoffs. He's going to be sharing all his favourite picks, his favourite insights, his favourite lines, everything college football for the playoffs. And that's going to be on next Friday, so make sure you get into that one. Again, turn the noties on, like, follow, subscribe, share. You will not regret. So I'm going to sign off and catch you later.